Hi everybody, I'm Dawn. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for visiting with me today. So in this video, we are going to talk about Marshall and his cancer journey. Now, I have told this story before, but I thought, well, let me tell it again since I have a lot of new subscribers and a few people have actually asked me about it. So I thought, yeah, we'll share the story again. So when my son was born, he was born in 1998, December 18th, 1998. He shares his birthday with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Brad Pitt. I was worried from the second he was born that something was not right. He was a perfect baby. I wasn't worried that, oh, he's abnormal, I don't want him. It wasn't anything like that. But I was just had this aching, worried feeling. And I was told by health professionals time and time again, oh, you're just a new mom, you're a first-time mom, this is normal to feel like this. And I'm like, okay, all right, but I'm gonna keep pushing y'all. And he did stay in the nursery at the hospital for a week. I was in the hospital for a few days because I had a fever. I think they kept him longer because they wanted to make sure that he didn't catch anything from me, and that, you know, so they were treating him with antibiotics. And so on Christmas Eve, we got to bring him home, and I'm like telling my mom, I'm like, there's just seems like there's something wrong. And she goes, what do you mean there's something wrong? I'm like, I don't know. There seems like there's something wrong. And all his blood work, everything was fine. He was fine. My mom said he was fine. I took him to his first doctor visit. I told them I was worried. They're like, you're a first-time mom. You're going to be worried about everything. I'm like, okay. And I was one of those moms that would get up every 15 minutes to a half hour to check to make sure he was breathing. I was one of those moms. Tell me if you were one of those moms. In fact, I think every mom I know is one of those moms. Yeah. And so everything was normal for like 6 months. So I took him to a 6-month visit. He was just a couple weeks older than 6 months. So he was almost 7 months old. And so the doctor, felt his stomach and everything, said, oh, everything's great. So it was about 2 weeks later. He's sitting in his little seat and I'm feeding him, and I pick him up and put him on my shoulder. And when I do that, I feel in his tummy, I don't remember which side, the tumor was on his right side. And when I picked him up, I felt like a huge, hard lump. And I looked at him and I could see his belly was misshapen, like, his little belly was shaped like a balloon, but the right side was sticking out a little more. And I was immediately like, nope, nope, nope. And I didn't drive at the time. I was scared to drive. So I called my best friend, his godmother, and I asked her if there was any way she could please come take me to his doctor. There's something wrong with him, blah, blah. And she goes, yeah. So she took me up there, and the same doctor that had examined him 2 weeks prior I can tell she was freaked out. And she was feeling his stomach. She said, She goes, I don't want to alarm you, but this does feel like a lump of some kind. Yeah, I know. That's why we're here. I wasn't rude to her or anything, but I'm like, yeah. And she's like, we're going to go ahead and send you to, at the time it was called University Hospital. We're going to send you, and oh, also I have to point out, Eric just started a new job and we did not have insurance. So that's a thing. And then that was another thing I was freaking out about, because I told them I didn't have any insurance and I didn't have any money to pay them that day. But they were like, that's not even an issue right now. And they had the nurse call the hospital and told them to be waiting for us. And they were going to call an ambulance to take us up there, but Eric had shown up because my friend had called him at his work. So he had showed up at the doctor's office to pick us up, not realizing we were on our way to the hospital. So he took us up to the hospital, University Hospital, and we go inside, and this was the hospital where people went, like county. This was where people were sent if they were stabbed or shot or things like that. It was like the I don't know what it's called, but that's where, like, if there were any crimes committed against people, this is where they went. So there were all kinds of people there. There was blood on the floor. I mean, people, there were, I forgot, environmental services were out there cleaning up the messes and stuff, but it was scary. It was terrifying. As me and Eric and Marshall were walking in, a lady was being wheeled in holding her stomach, and I just happened to look, and she was bleeding from her stomach. It was something, it was terrible. And so, and it was also the insurance people were sent to if they didn't, I mean, the hospital people were sent to if they didn't have insurance. So they immediately took him back, and they were trying to access a vein so they can get blood from him, but they couldn't access a vein. And Marshall wasn't a big crier. He wasn't a fussy baby at all, but they had to bring in a doctor to go into his groin to get to it, and they just couldn't do it. And finally just said, stop. I was crying. I was like, leave him alone. He doesn't like this. They were like, I know, but we've got to get blood. And his veins really aren't very good. And he was also developing a black eye, like underneath his eye. It was and really dark. So then they were like, well, what happened to his eye? I'm like, that literally happened while we were here, you know? And so then they were like, we're gonna, we think we're gonna have to send you to Wolfson, but for right now, Wolfson is the children's hospital. And she is, but for right now, we're gonna admit you and send you upstairs. So they put us in a room with him, and these two interns come in, and they were like, they were finally able to get blood from him. I don't really actually remember how they did it. I think they did access his groin eventually, but the interns came in, and one of them was like, he's anemic. What are you feeding him? And I'm like, and I'm a new mother. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm worried. So I'm not feisty. I wasn't feisty at this point in my life. And I said, well, I told her what I fed him, and then also breast milk. She goes, he needs more iron. And I'm like, I don't think that is what his problem is, but thank you for your input. But my sister got wordy with her, so she went away. And then ambulance, EMS or EMTs came in to get him. And they said, we're going to take y'all to Wolfson Children's Hospital. And I knew when they said that, first, I knew when they said that this is very serious, which I knew it was serious to begin with, but that just confirmed it. And secondly, I knew now he's going to get good care, because Wolfson Children's Hospital is an excellent hospital. So, I mean, some people will disagree with me, but everybody has different experiences. Our experience there has always been wonderful, except for 2 occasions, which, you know, sometimes things happen. So me and Marshall rode in the ambulance there, and the whole rest of the family met us at the hospital, and they bring us through the ER to check him in, and then they bring us up to, it's called 5 Wolfson. It was the 5th floor. I don't think that that's still where it's at, but when the elevator doors open, I see the Ronald McDonald House family room, and I'm like, this is bad. I mean, it's good that they have that, but I knew, no, this is not what I want right now. And so far it's been over 24 hours. And then they put us in a room, and they come and they take care of him and everything. And then the next day, he sleeps that night, and the next day they run tests on him. I think they did all kinds of scans, blood work, they did x-rays, they did ultrasound. And it was a couple days later, or not even a couple days, maybe another day later, the oncologist came in. But first, let me tell you, I didn't know what an oncologist was at the time. I didn't know what that was, because I never needed to know what one was. And the 2 male interns came in to talk to us, and I asked him what an oncologist was because I didn't know. And he just put his head down and he says, a doctor that treats blood disorders and cancers. And you can kind of tell he did not want to tell me what an oncologist did. But I was like, oh, okay. I already at this point pretty much knew it's probably some type of cancer because it was a tumor. And so after they did all the tests and stuff and they did the ultrasound, and I have a weird story about the ultrasound, and we'll get to that in a minute if I remember. One of the doctors, he had four oncologists that I had spoke to that were all part of the same team. And the one oncologist comes in there and he just flat out tells me it's neuroblastoma stage 4. Well, actually, the first time he didn't know. He goes, it's either Wilms tumor or neuroblastoma. If it has to be cancer, you'd rather it be Wilms tumor than neuroblastoma. We're going to run a few more tests and we'll know for certain what it is. But I don't remember how long it took for them to confirm that it was neuroblastoma. It was stage 4 neuroblastoma with marrow involvement. So, and because he was under a year old, they just consider it stage 4 immediately. And I don't know if that's the same with all childhood cancers, but for neuroblastoma, that's the way it was back then. Things may have changed since then. And I was like, okay. Eric went into the bathroom. My mom and brothers were there. I'm holding my baby and I'm just crying. So they got up and they just left because none of them can handle to see me cry. I'm sorry, this is not serious. This is going to stop. This is going to stop. So, but let me tell you the funny story about the ultrasound real quick. So I was operating on 0 sleep and they're doing the ultrasound on him and he's having fun, by the way. I just want you to know. He thinks all this attention and everything, he thinks it's party time. He is into it, okay? He is there for the party. And Marshall is, y'all remember that Pink song? It was like her first hit, you know, I'm coming out, so you better get the party started. That song, I'm not a good singer, but that song, my sister said every time she heard that song, she would think of Marshall because it was just party time whenever he showed up. It was like, yeah, let's party. It was funny. He is not like that anymore. He is like, I just want to go to bed, you know, now that he has to work. But it was funny. But anyway, so he's having his ultrasound and he's having fun with the tech, you know. And I'm just no sleep. And I'm just like this and I'm looking up at the monitor, you know, where you can see when an ultrasound is being done. And it looked like, and this is what I saw, and I was sleep deprived. It looked like a demon lifting its head to look at me. This was so weird. It was like a demon's head looking at me. And then it was like he spread his wings out, but then he was like Christ on the cross. That was a hallucination I had. But it was also a premonition. And when I saw that, I know it's crazy. I know how this sounds coming out of my mouth. But remember, I was sleep deprived. But when I saw that, it gave me some peace. It's so weird. Every time I tell that story, I get a little emotional because it's just so weird. It's because I never did drugs or anything in my life. I never had hallucinations. I think this was a sleep deprived hallucination. But it gave me peace. But I kept that to myself. I mean, I told my sister about it, but so he, you know, so anyway, so we got the diagnosis from the oncologist and my mom and my brothers left and Eric was just being strong as hell. So we were like, let's just get started. And they came in and they're like, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And they were going to have an educational seminar, session with us, and all this stuff. We were going to meet with social workers, and I'm like telling them, like, we don't have insurance. And they told us also that's not an issue. Everything's going to be handled. And it was like maybe 2 days. The social worker came in and just started handing me papers like, this is for the insurance. You've got this. We've got him. And the thing that surprised me the most was he was able to get Social Security supplemental income, which I wasn't expecting at all. And it was approved like that. And they said, yeah, with children, it's really fast. And I'm like, I knew it was fast. I didn't know it was like that fast. It was super fast. And they gave us all this paperwork and all this information. This is your card for dental. This is your card for this. This is your card for that. You're going to use this for, just so many things. And they said the Department of Health is going to contact you, and AFDC is going to contact you, and all this stuff. And I was overwhelmed. And she was like, it's okay. It's okay. All these organizations exist to help you. I'm like, okay. Because there was one ridiculous moment where I was afraid my child was going to be taken away from me because I let him get cancer. They said that was ridiculous. I'm like, it's just a feeling I have. I'm not saying it's not ridiculous. But I would imagine, and I don't know for sure, but I would imagine with as easy as it was to get everything we needed right when we needed it back then, I imagine it would be easier now. But I hear horror stories from families who are dealing with this. But I'm like, it was so easy. I mean, other than signing papers, we literally didn't do anything. They were just like, okay, we got you this, we got you that, we got you this. I think they asked for a copy of his birth certificate, one person, and, I just went on too long about that. But yeah, talk to your social workers. If you have very young children and they're dealing with a medical battle, talk to your social workers. They're there to help you, and they are invaluable. What else? So yeah, so he was 7 months old. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Solid tumor neuroblastoma the size of a grapefruit. And it was so weird. They started chemo, I think. So all this took place like late in the week and during the weekend. So the following Monday, they started chemotherapy. And 24 hours after the first chemotherapy, we couldn't feel the tumor anymore. It shrunk that much. And they continued the chemotherapy for, so that was July. Oh, and his diagnosis, by the way, we got his official diagnosis on our anniversary of the day we met. That's weird, but that was on the anniversary of when we met, when we got his diagnosis. But he was on chemo for July, August, September, October, November, December. So he was on chemo for about 5.5 months. And then that January, they did the tumor resection. And this child, they gave him a tumor resection. He had a, what is it? When you get it, when you're having baby, the epidural. He had an epidural. And he was just kind of like, let's see if I could find photos of it. And if I can, I'll insert them here. So he had the epidural, and he was just kind of, ugh. As soon as they took the epidural out, he was partying. I'm like, you've had your stomach cut open. He had a scar this long. But he didn't care. He did not care. And, but see, that's the wonderful thing about very young children. They don't know they're supposed to be sick. Yeah. So what else? And so, yeah, he had the tumor taken out in January. That would be 2000. And then he had chemo for several more months. They wanted to do a few more clean bone marrow biopsies, and then they had to do a harvest, a stem cell harvest of his own stem cells, because they were going to do a stem cell transplant utilizing his own stem cells, because though he had marrow involvement, the cancer wasn't in his stem cells, so they were able to use his stem cells. And so they did a stem cell harvest, which the stem cell harvest was more upsetting to him than the major tumor removal surgery. Because there was pretty big holes, 2 in the front hip and 2 in the back hip. And they were big ones. They were a lot more invasive than the bone marrow biopsies. And after the harvest, I think they did a couple more rounds of chemo, did another biopsy, and because they needed 3 clean biopsies each 90 days apart. So I believe that was the guideline. I'm pretty sure it was. And then if I had his roadmap, I would talk about it, but I'm not sure where I put that. The roadmap is kind of what they give you that tells you what, the process is going to be and the schedule for the medications and stuff. And so after the 3rd clean, completely cancer-free bone marrow biopsy, they scheduled him for his stem cell transplant, which we were told it was going to be up to 90 days in the hospital. Once he received the chemotherapy to kill all the bone marrow, they said it's going to be alarming to you. He's going to be in what seems to be a near-death state. Don't let it scare you. It's all part of the process. And he couldn't eat hospital food or anything like that. He could nurse, and he could have breast milk, which I wasn't nursing him, but I was still expressing breast milk to put in his cereal and stuff. So he could have breast milk, but he would have to also have a grocery list, and they would go shopping for him every week while he was in the hospital. And so they, made the shopping list with me because I didn't know what to put on it, and brought him in for his stem cell transplant in the transplant unit. And he was never in this near-death state. We would be like, sometimes it would be like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's like, Mama Tubby, Mama Tubby. That means Teletubbies. He loved Teletubbies and Bear in the Big Blue House and Elmo. And I was like, oh my gosh. I thought this kid was supposed to be sick. Not that I wanted him to be sick, but Mama wanted to sleep a little bit. Now, he did get one chemo that would burn the skin, like when he would sweat. So he would have to while he was getting that chemo, he would need to be bathed every 20 minutes. So in the middle of the night, we would do the bathing during the day. Even the nurse would do it, but I would help, because I wanted them to know I was involved. But then in the evening, when I was sleeping, they would come in every 20 minutes and get him up to bathe him, to wash him off. And I would wake up and hear him in there just splashing in the water, having a good old time. And the nurses are giggling. It was funny. This kid had no idea he was supposed to be sick. He was just having fun. And when they came in to do the transplant, finally to put in the stem cell transplant, it was so weird. I don't know if you've had an experience with stem cells before, like preserved stem cells, but they smell like garlic and creamed corn. It's not a disgusting smell, but it's just an unusual smell. But yeah, he got that, and he was in the hospital they said he would be in the hospital, like the average stay was about 90 days. I think we went home. It was like 3 weeks. It was like 21 days, and we were able to go home, and they sent us home with, nutrition and everything that he had to get through the IV, and he had a home health nurse and everything. He was eating. They said it's probably going to be at least a week or 2 before he's eating, but if he wants to eat, he can eat. That kid was eating the second we got him home. he still had to get his nutrition, but he was fine. He was eating fine. But unfortunately, the next bone marrow stems, next time he had a marrow biopsy, it was positive for a very, very small amount of cancer. But these doctors were extremely aggressive and they weren't going to have it. So then they said, we're going to give him, they said it was considered a relapse, and they were going to give him what was called ICES. I believe it was ifosfamide, cisplatin, and etoposide. I know cisplatin is in the news right now for being really bad. The chemo is bad. It's poison. And he got ICE for about 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. Another biopsy, that was clean. Then they sent him in for radiation of the tumor spot, and another biopsy, that was fine. He went through some final panels, everything was fine. And then it was just follow up for a couple years. And yeah, he's been cancer free ever since he was 4 years old. And one thing, we went to a softball game with, it was a celebrity softball game where they were raising money for the Child Cancer Fund. And one of the celebrities was Martin Kove. He played Kreese in the Karate Kid films and in Cobra Kai. He was also in Last House on the Left. Very small role in Last House on the Left, the original. And we met him there at the softball game, and he held Marshall, because Marshall was just a little one, and he said, oh, he said he's tough, he's gonna kick this cancer. He said he's totally gonna kick it. And he's like, he goes, you catch up with me in 20 years and tell me how he's doing. And I'm like, okay. So it was, I think it was last January 2023, we went to MegaCon, and he was there, and I went up to meet him, and I'm like, hi. And he's like, hi. And I didn't have the picture to show him. I was trying to find the picture to show him, but I told him the story. I said, you were playing in a softball game for a fundraiser. And, he asked where it was, and I told him all about it. And he goes, yeah, I remember that. And he named some of the celebrities he had played with and everything. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, Child Cancer Fund. And I said, yeah. And I said, you held my son. He was just a baby, and you told me he was going to be fine. And I said, he's 25 years old now. And I'm like, you were right. He is fine. He goes, I'm always right. But so he gave Marshall a free autograph, and he was just really nice about it. Oh, and then Mark Brunell, when he played for the Jaguars, he was coming in the hospital to meet the kids, and the nurse came in to tell me that, and as she's telling me that, Marshall is like, bleh, all over my clothes. And Eric was bringing me more clothes up at the hospital, but he wasn't there yet, so I had barf all over me. So they found me scrubs to put on because I didn't want to meet Mark Brunell with barf all over me. I didn't like football, but I liked Mark Brunell. So yeah, so that's the story. I'm sorry if I blattered on and it was too long. But that was our experience. He's been cancer free ever since. As you know, we had that scare recently, ended up being nothing. He's had really no health issues since then. Everything is me. I'm the health problem. But yeah, he's been healthy his entire life. He battled the cancer when he was young, and he's done with it. Never has to deal with that again, hopefully. But the longer he goes without a relapse, he's considered cured now. Doctors don't like to use the word cured, but no evidence of disease is a very good thing. But anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed my story or learned something from it. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments or email me. I might not know all the answers. Don't ask me medical questions regarding the cancer, because I can't answer those, but I can answer questions about the experience or how to get help. I can tell you organizations to deal with. In fact, I am going to make a video where I showcase different organizations and what they do for families of and children with cancer, because there are a lot out there. And there were a couple. There was one organization that reached out to me when he went in for a stem cell transplant and told me, we provide money for food for the parents while the child is in the hospital, because we know you're not cooking, you're not at home very much. And I was like, oh my God, that would be very helpful. And they sent us like $1,000, and in 2000, $1,000 was a ton of money. It's not much now, but back then it was a lot of money. And the social worker didn't even know about it. She was like, it's a scam. I'm like, no, it's not. I looked into it. It's a real charity organization. And so I had a hand in having that added to their list of resources. So, and that was extremely helpful. It fed us the whole time we were, and the good thing about this hospital we were at, they don't have it anymore, but they used to have, and we weren't eating very healthy because it was vending machines or this late night place a lot of the times. But like the cafeteria was really good, but sometimes we were up all night and sleeping all day. I wouldn't make it to the cafeteria. But they had, at the time, they have a Chick-fil-A now, but at the time they had a Subway. I think they had a Subway. They had the regular cafeteria. They had a cafe, and then, they had like a little Starbucks, and then they also had a pizzeria. But the pizzeria was open really weird hours. It was like 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., so we were getting a lot of late night pizza and yeah, stuff like that. But when you're a parent and your child's in the hospital and you're hungry and you don't want to go home and cook, it's a godsend. Yeah. So if I always look back at that experience, as hard as it was a blessing. But anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to everyone later. Bye.